Hi. So in previous sessions, I have discussed about history and the remarkable work which received the Nobel Prize. And now in this session, I will discuss various branches of immunology, and because now the immunology is very established field. Okay, a very established people are there. Okay, not a small thing. It's a huge. So, I will just discuss about some of the branches of immunology which is driven by those group of scientists or those group of immunologists who work particularly in that field. Okay. So, there are various branches of immunology, and because of emergence of lot of field or sub specialization, the classical immunology is it's not no more existing, and now there is a specialized branches of immunology. As you can see here, there is a clinical immunology, cellular or molecular immunology, cancer immunology, which is also known as oncoimmunology, transplantation immunology, development and comparative immunology, immunoinformatics, because of now we have a lot of system engineer, okay, system biology engineer who turn to the biologist, and their role is very crucial in development of immunology. So, there is a immunoinformatics and computational immunology. People do this kind of work also. There is a mucosal immunology. This is a very established field, mucosal immunology, because there is a whole new set of mechanism, new sets of cells which are present in the mucosal surfaces, which giving defense against microbial pathogen without reacting with non-pathogenic entities like food. Okay. So, when we eat food, we do not have an immune reaction, but if it has a pathogen, then our immune system do react. So, all these things comes in a mucosal immunology. There is a Immuno Genetics. So, genetics plays a very important role in in various aspect of cellular and molecular events taking place in the cells. Okay. So, there is a very established field of immunology which deals about this immunogenetics. I will explain you each field with one slide. Okay. There is a neuroimmunology. We will discuss neuroimmunology. There is a structural immunology, reproductive immunology, nutritional immunology, and system immunology or vaccine immunology, and viral immunology. So, these are some key field. There are some more immunology field, like there is a parasitology, which talks about the parasite and defense against parasites. Okay. And there are bacterial or there are some specific bacteria people are there, and they basically study the interaction of this bacteria with immunity, and how bacteria basically hijack the host immunity and evade the immune system and establish the infection. Okay. On another hand, we also investigate that how our immune system overcome these bacterial infection, what are the all molecular and cellular mechanisms are there. Okay. Now, let us take each field. First, we will talk about the clinical immunology. Basically, this clinical immunology deals with diagnosis and treatment of disease related to the dysregulation of immune system. Now, there is a word, dysregulation of immune system. So, dysregulation of immune system could be intrinsic or extrinsic. Okay. Intrinsic means if there is some mutation in some very key molecules. Okay. And if this mutation will be there in the kid, okay, or in individual, then there is a possibility that the immune system will be compromised. Okay. there is a possibility. Okay. So, all those individuals, they develop some kind of dysregulation of immune system, and that result to the immunopathology, okay, or development of disease. Okay. So, here you can see there is a balanced immunity, and this balanced immunity is basically maintaining the homeostasis, okay, and it is also defending against the pathogen. Okay. Here there could be two major possibility. One is that suppression of immune system. Okay. So, suppression of immune system could be taking place if some effector molecule which is playing a very important role against defense are somehow not producing in sufficient amount, or it is not at all presenting. Okay. So, then there will be a suppression of immunity. Okay. One very good example which you will learn when I will discuss about the neutrophil, there is a enzyme known as NADPH oxidase. So, there are some individual who lack this enzymatic activity of NADPH oxidase, and they develop those individuals, basically those are the pediatric individual, they develop a disease known as CGD. Okay. So, this is a suppression of immunity, and there could be excessive immunity. So, you know that there is a signaling pathway, and in signaling pathway there is some negative regulators, okay, which basically stop the activation of pathway. So, if some mutation or something happens in those molecules by intrinsic mean or by some extrinsic mean, by some infection, then that will result to the development of excessive immune response, and that may cause to the may be responsible for the development of autoimmune disease. Okay. So, we all these things we study in the clinical immunology. It is not only limited to the clinical immunology, but basically clinical immunology, they play important role in diagnosis and whatever possible way to treat that thing, okay, that complication. So, over there clinical immunologists are there, but it is not limited to the clinical immunologist. Fundamental immunologist can also do research and perform various experiments in order to resolve this problem. Another is cellular and molecular immunology. Basically, over there we look at the interaction of cell and molecules of immune system in general under normal scenario, and of course, we compare with disease scenario. So, basically here we look at all those molecules involved in for example, defense against bacteria, defense against viruses, and so on and so forth. Okay. There are various cells, they differentiate in particular scenarios. So, we also look at all those cells, how they are differentiating, and what are the microenvironment which skews these cells for the differentiation of that particular cell type, which is needed for the defense, okay, or needed for some immunopathology. Okay. So, all these things we study in the cellular and molecular immunology. Cancer immunology or oncoimmunology, this is the very big field and huge field. Okay. Here we basically understand the role of immune system, basically interaction of role of immune system with the cancer. Okay. So, basically our immune system keep on checking the transformed cell or cancerous cell. If there is some cancerous cell, this will our immune system will take care of that. They basically go and eliminate. There are specialized cells which basically eliminate these transformed cells. Okay. And those cells later on you will study, there are some cells known as NK cell or T cells. Okay. So, all these things we study in the in cancer immunology. Besides this, we also trigger the immune system in order to control the cancer in cancer patient, and we call it as a cancer immunotherapy. There we use the tools of or understanding of immunology, and we trigger the immune system in such a way, in a controlled way, so that the transformed or cancerous cell will be eliminated. Okay. So we discuss all this thing or learn all this thing or perform research in all these things in cancer immunology or oncoimmunology. Okay. There is a transplantation immunology, and that is very important. Graft or graft. So there is a you know that in some accident or in some scenario we need to replace the organ. Okay. But this is not very simple. You cannot just take the organ put organ from one individual and put it in that individual. There is a lot of complication. You need to match the tissue, match various things. Okay. And then this is possible. Okay. So there are various kind of or various kind of scenarios are there. One is autologous transplantation. This means that you take the tissue from the individual from one place and place it to the another place. So this autologous is very common for skin. Okay. So skin transplantation. So in general, what doctor is doing, they take out the skin from one place and then they put it on another place in order to correct that particular problem. Okay. Another is syngeneic, which is not so common. It's basically genetically same individual. It is possible in case of mirror image twins. Okay. So since the mirror image twins have a same genetic background, so in that scenario they can take any organ from one individual and place it to the another individual. This is again a very simple scenario. However, this allogenic is much more complex. Okay. So taking the organ or tissues from one individual and placing it to the another individual, that we call it as allogenic. Okay. And this needs a lot of investigation before performing this kind of transplantation, and all these things we study in the transplantation immunology. Immunologists around the world, they are making a lot of effort to take the organs from the animal and put it in the human. Okay. And the most preferred model is pigs. Okay. So that we call it as a xenogeny or xenograft. Okay. And this needs a lot of research and lot of investigation. Okay. So all these things we study in the transplantation immunology. There is a development and comparative immunology. This is very interesting because there is a diverging facet of immunology among different species. Okay. So in some species, some immune system is well developed. Okay. In another species, that may be not developed. So when we do this comparative study, then we basically try to figure out how this the system which is not developed, how it is taken care by or what are the factors, cell or molecules are involved in giving that kind of protection. Okay. So this basically it's a comparison are carried according to the principle of evolutionary conserved themes outline the biological function universally relevant for the survival. That what I have explained to you. Here I would like to bring your attention that in history of immunology you have studied that Emil Metchnikoff, he discovered this phagocytosis in the starfish. Okay. So from there we or immunologists discovered, or the scientists discovered, that phagocytosis is also existing in human or other animals. Okay. The discovery of a pattern recognition receptor, I have explained you in previous session the work of Julie Hoffman, okay, who received the Nobel Prize. He first discovered this pattern recognition receptor in flies. Okay. And then this study was extended to the human by Bruce Butler and Ruslan Majitov and Shiza Akira, and they basically opened a new field of immunology, which we call it as a innate immunobiology. Okay, so discovery in Drosophila result to the big discovery in human. Okay, so discovery of toll receptors in flies. Here one more organ, in future you will study in great detail that there is an organ which is present in the birds or avians, and that organ is needed for the B cell development. Okay, so that is also discovery that there is some B cells which is giving us some specific molecule known as antibody. So all those things, all these discoveries result to the discovery in human. Okay, so this is very important field. Okay, so there is some similar field which we call it as a veterinary immunology, also deals with similar but restricted to the vertebrate animal models to study the immune system mechanism. So veterinary immunology is also one field. Okay. There is immunoinformatics or computational immunology. So now you know that there is a huge data, okay, about our defense system. For example, you perform the transcriptomic study. Okay, so this transcriptomic study, for example, you are performing with some virus. So one cell is infected with virus, another is not. So similarly, that will generate lot of transcriptome data. Okay, so this is basically this transcriptome data you can obtain by microarray. There is a genomic data, there is a proteomic data, there is a metabolomic data. So all these data, this is a huge data. So here the data scientist plays a very important role. So they can investigate, and they can basically come up with some novel finding. Okay, this molecule may be playing a very important role in defense or in development of disease. Okay, so they can give us some more predictions. Okay, and those predictions can be extensively investigated, and then we can conclude that okay, these molecule or these pathways are playing important role in particular defense. Okay, so over there, this immunoinformatics informatician and computational immunologist play a very important role. Mucosal immunology, as I told you in previous session, so this is a very important field. It's a very interesting to learn or to find out how this immune tolerance, because when we eat the food, then there is no reaction, but if it has a pathogen, then that will react. Okay, that our immune system will develop against those microbial pathogens. Okay, so this understanding this delicate balance of immune reaction and immune tolerance is a very interesting. Okay, and in mucosal immunology, basically we study the immune system, how this immune system, this delicate balance is maintained in our gut, in urogenital tract and respiratory system. Okay, so over there is some suppressor cell, some activator cell, all those things are there, and this field is a recently very hot field, because we don't know too much about this mucosal immunity. Okay, and now I will talk about the immunogenetics. So immunogenetics is another very important field. There is some set of gene which is playing a very important role in pathogenesis of disease or development of some congenital diseases. Okay, here you can see there are list of disease, and it is associated with human major histocompatibility complex. Okay, so all this thing we study in the immunogenetics, and this immunogenetics is also helping in predicting, okay, this individual may be susceptible with this disease or all those things. So this immunoinformatics can predict. Okay, if you have the genomic information or transcriptomic information. Okay, so this is also very important field. Neuroimmunology, basically this deals with the study of the interaction of immune system and nervous system during development of immunity, maintenance of homeostasis. So this is a very complex field. Why? I will tell you. Now there is a concept that for most of disease there is a concept of having for these diseases the basis is inflammation. Okay. So there is a inflammation which can be mediated by some living and non-living entity, like living entity is bacteria, viruses and so on. So, and non-living entity could be some dust, pollutant or so on. So, okay. But there is another thing like depression, how depression result to the inflammation. Okay. How depression result to the inflammation and then development of various metabolic diseases, okay, like diabetes, hypertension, cardiovascular diseases and all those things. How this immune reaction, for example, inflammation result to the pain, okay. So, all those things basically we study in the neuroimmunology, okay, and this is again very complex field and it is very difficult to conduct an experiment, okay. So this is about the neuroimmunology. Here we generally as I have told you that how this inflammation result to the pain. So we at least it is not very clearly understood the molecular and cellular basis, okay. How this psychological impact result to the systemic chronic inflammation, as I told you, which result to the development of metabolic diseases, okay. So all these things we study in the neuroimmunology. There is a field which we call it as a structural immunology. Basically this field discuss about the structure of some receptor molecule and how this ligand will bind to this receptor. It is not limited to this, another level is how this pathogen, for example, recently you have seen the SARS-CoV-2 virus and this binds to the S2 receptor, okay. So these structural information is very much needed in order to develop a appropriate vaccine or some molecule in order to control this disease so if you discover some small molecule, then that can be used for the treatment of SARS-CoV-2 infection, okay. So this is also very important field, okay, where you basically study the structure of immune molecules, antigen, antibody, pathogen receptor that can target it therapeutically for infection for infectious disease treatment, okay. Another is reproductive immunology. This is very important in and basically it deals with understanding of immunological relationship between developing fetus, mother immunity, okay. This is one component. Another is that as you know that when the host receive any foreign molecule that reacts, okay. But reproductive system is the system which is immune privileged, okay, because when sperm passes through this female reproductive tract, then there is a no immune reaction. So how it is taking place, okay. So what is the molecular mechanism, cellular mechanism, and besides this, when fetus is developing, okay, in mother, then there is a interaction between the fetus immunity with the mother immunity, okay. So how these things are balanced, okay, why not this mother is rejecting that fetus, okay. So all those things we study in this reproductive immunology, okay. Nutritional immunology, so this is also playing a very important role. For example, if during infection, if you take or there is a hyperglycemia, then that will cause difficulty in healing of wound, okay. Similarly, some infection, if you there is a some nutritional thing which is playing a very important role in defending that microbial infection. So here you can see that there is some signal and there is some pathogen, and this basically for pathogen growth there is a need of iron. Okay, so if we restrict this kind of thing, then we can protect the host from the severity of infection. Okay. System biology and vaccine biology I have told you. So now we have a lot of or wealth of information. Okay. So by using this information, you can understand there is a bulk tissue information or there is a single cell RNA data also. Okay. So by applying all those computational or data science engineering methods, we can it is possible that we can find out some novel pathway, novel molecule during the infection, and this will also help in development of a vaccine. Okay, or effect of vaccine. Okay. So finally I will talk about the viral immunology. It's like other infectious disease. There are variety of viruses, DNA viruses, RNA viruses, and RNA viruses are again so many kinds. Okay. So how our immune system respond to various kind of viruses, and for different viruses what kind of immune response or protective responses are there, how we can exploit some signature. For example, there are some regulatory molecule known as microRNA. Okay, these microRNA basically produced in our body in order to control the transcript. Okay, but these microRNA can also interact with the viral genome. Okay, and once this will interact, then this may I don't know, this may suppress the viral replication or this may support the viral replication, depends on type of this microRNA. So we basically investigate all those things in viral immunology. Okay, and with this I will stop here, and we will move to next session. In coming session I will introduce with immunity. I will talk about some properties of immunity and how this innate and adaptive immunity communicates each other. Thank you.